Meredith Glacken, beautiful background. Tell us, where are you and what's the significance of being there?
San Pedro OCR is taking place over the next 3 weeks here at the U.S. venue for the Olympics. And so this is it right behind me.
For a while, we thought that the Olympic regatta was going to be in Long Beach, just as it was in the Los Angeles Games of 1984. But split venue competition, isn't it?
It is, yes. The boarders and the kiters will be competing in Long Beach, and the sailing disciplines will be here in the Los Angeles Harbour in the San Pedro neighborhood.
And I was speaking to Elliot Hansen, one of the British sailors, who thinks maybe they've got the better deal in San Pedro because he's saying there tends to be a couple knots more extra wind in San Pedro than in Long Beach. Would you agree with that?
Both places are just iconic sailing venues. The breeze last week did not disappoint. Every single day, the sea breeze fills in the afternoon between about 1 and 3. So you had racers out as late as 4:30 p.m. starting, getting in between 6 and 7 o'clock. Just beautiful racing all afternoon long here.
Well, that is what we want to hear. Now, as we speak, some of the events are still to take place. The skiffs have yet to race, for example, and the Nacra 17. But let's look at who has competed so far. And shall we start with the women in the ILCA 6 single-hander?
Absolutely. And it was a great week. Andy, I always love to root for the home team here in the U.S., but I have to confess to a little bit of Beatlemania this week. The Brits really did an incredible job.
Well, yes, they have come out pretty well from some of these events, which is obviously greatly encouraging for me with my British passport. But the ILCA 6, not too bad for USA either, was it? So let's look at who was doing well there. I see, for example, former world champion from Hungary, Mari Erdi was fourth, and Lena Flem-Hurst, I think she got the bronze medal in Paris 2024. She's in 10th. But talk us through the fight for the medals and who ended up with the medals.
And world number one, Charlotte Rose, she really hung around the top three all week long. Very, very consistent performance. In the fifth day, we saw a lot of movement in the fleet, people really going for it, taking risks. She had a DSQ in a port starboard at a mark rounding, but really clawed back on the final day to get back on the podium, even climbing a position into second place. So that was very exciting. Hannah Snellgrove, also very, very consistent all week long. Likewise with Eve McMahon coming in at an overall third from Ireland.
Right, yeah, so Eve McMahon, the Irish sailor, really the rising star who's gone from the youth ranks and topping the youth world to being a major contender on the senior scene. Fantastic result for her to get bronze, but Charlotte Rose, great for the USA to get a silver there. And Hannah Snellgrove, our Olympic representative for Great Britain in Paris. I didn't realise how Hannah was going around so strongly for another campaign, but I mean, yeah, she's a very experienced sailor and seems to be having the time of her life.
And she really has a remarkable story this week too, Andy. She had a tragedy recently. Her father passed away just a few weeks ago, and she told me that this gold medal was for him.
Oh, well, that is beautiful. She is a lovely human being as well, and when I meet her, I don't see the ruthlessness that I think that athletes need, but clearly whatever she needs, she's got to win a gold medal, and especially after so soon after a family tragedy speaks very well of her. And what about the ILCA 7 men? Some familiar names at the top of the fleet there. I'm just digging down, seeing who was a little bit further down. Yeah, Tom Saunders from New Zealand in 11th, Zach Littlewood from Australia in 12th, just a little bit further back. And as usual, some really good names that don't make it into the top few. But as for the fight for the medals, well, some extremely familiar names there.
Yes, and how exciting for Matt Wearn, having just announced his Olympic campaign, the two-time gold medalist. And, he hung around all week long. He didn't post a single bullet, but he just stayed consistent, kept finishing in the top three. If he had a bad race, he recovered, and he really just drove on that final day to put himself in position to first to close it out.
Yeah, so he continues to be the benchmark that everyone else has to try and measure themselves against. And Elliot Hansen was saying that those conditions tend to work very well to Matt Wearn's strengths. Full hiking, very powerful sailor in the stronger winds, and for the Olympic classes regatta, it was classic sea breeze and quite right hand favoured from what I understand. So putting a lot of emphasis on good starting. Would you agree with that?
I would. And there's actually 3 race courses out here. 2 of them take place outside of the LA Harbour breakwater, and 1 takes place inside. 2 very, very different tracks. The inside, very kind of variable winds. You have the water breaking up against the seawall, causing a little bit of a confused state. So interesting challenges inside the breakwater. Outside the breakwater, as you say, consistently right. One of the athletes this week told me, right is right. Anton Dahlberg from Sweden. Right is right, he said. And then as we got into it during the week, it was a discussion of, well, all right, everyone's going right, but how? How do we get there? When everyone wants to go to the same place, there's a lot of traffic to contend with. There's little eddies out here that come into play. And so I think that was the big challenge for these athletes 2 years out, was just sort of learning how all that comes into play during their racing.
Yeah, it's going to be very congested at that committee boat end of the line, unless there's a huge amount of port bias, I suppose. And then how do you peel out to the right hand side and pick that ley line? You briefly mentioned some of the 470 sailors just now. Let's go to those 470 sailors on recent form. Spain would be expected possibly to win the gold medal because they have been so strong over the last number of years. Jordi Jamar dominating the last cycle and continuing that domination in many of the important events with his new crew Marta Cardona. But I see here that they were only 10th. So have you got any insight into why the Spanish finished 10th? Because that is not a good score by their standards.
They sort of struggled this week. They put up some good scores, but they just simply weren't as consistent as some of the contenders. And I keep using the word consistent, but that is really key in this fleet, especially with the talent that is so compressed. These sailors are beating each other sometimes by a fraction of a second. They're all very, very close in talent and timing. So they've got a bit of work to do after this week.
I'm sure you're absolutely right about that. That was the one that stood out to me that I expected to see on the podium, but all the ones that did make the top 3 are not a great surprise, other than that you mentioned Anton Dahlberg and Larissa Lindner. I see she's got a different surname since I last reported on the game. So
got married. Yes, she just got married, and Anton's children were there. It was a really fun scene. But this is the first event that they've sailed in together since they won the bronze medal in Paris. So a very exciting moment for them. So validating in your talent and the way that you practice to be able to come out and perform like that right out of the gate.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what Olympic game cycle this is for Anton. Is it his 6th time round?
Right, something like that. He's
still,
been around
still hasn't
a while.
got a grey hair. I don't know how he's managed that.
And those two just love racing too. And you see that across all the fleets too. Every time they talk about their racing, they smile, and you simply can't keep them off the water.
Yeah, great to see them back, because I didn't expect to see them back on the campaign trail. But a bronze medal for Sweden so early back in their campaign is great. And then the strong German squad rewarded with a silver medal for Simon Deitch and Anna Markfort, who it's easy to say are the big breeze specialists. I don't know if that's fair, but they've always been fast in the strong stuff, and I know they're working well. They're working hard to get good across the range. Do you think this was a good week of wind for them, or was it a little bit more varied than that?
I do, and I think it was a good week for the entire German fleet. You saw the other German team performing quite well as well. But across all of these athletes, the goal is, of course, to win in a race. But time after time, they were just repeating the idea that this is the first time that anyone's getting out on Olympic water. So it's truly an opportunity to go out and learn the venue.
And as for our gold medalists, well, you referred to good performances by Great Britain, and it was Martin Wrigley and Bettine Harris that ended up taking the gold for Great Britain. And that's that phase of the competition done. Presumably the faster boats, the 49er, the 49er FX and the Nacra 17 are already training in the venue. Have you got to know those guys yet?
Yes, they're here. There are a few I'm really excited to see and to chat with and to watch how they perform this week. Emil Gerard and Hannah Johnson from Sweden have been doing wonderful sailing this year. I'm excited to watch them in the Nacra 17 and the 49er. Our own from the U.S., Ian McDermott and Nevin Snow. They've been putting up some wonderful scores, medaled in Mallorca this year. Excited to watch them sail. From the Netherlands, Floris van der Werken and Bart Lambro of the Netherlands. Floris, I know, has been here for over a month. He actually competed in an amateur sailboat race in Long Beach, maybe about three weeks ago. Again, you just can't keep these guys off the water. It doesn't matter what boat it is, you'll find them on the water. And in the FX fleet, I'm really most excited about the battle between the American boats. We'll see how they do in the overall standings, but you have Olympic veterans Helena Scott and Paris Henkin competing together. And they, of course, have been to the Olympics before. And I went off, did other things in their sailing careers, came back together this year for an Olympic campaign, are learning how to sail together again, enjoying themselves, and putting up some strong performances. And then you have the first-time campaigners, Maddie Hawkins and Lily Myers, who are sailing out of Florida and being coached by German Olympian Vicky Jerschak.
Right. So, yeah, that'll be fascinating to watch how that US battle plays out. And I don't know if Adele Van Aanholt will be there, the reigning Olympic champion, with Carlinda, her brand new crew that she's only just started sailing with, and with limited background in the sport of sailing. That's a fascinating story to watch them develop.
You know, Andy, Olympic sailors are just like us. They're still registering for this race. So we'll see last-minute registrations up until the final day.
Yeah, with those little signs up with a dollar sign saying "still to be paid." Yeah.
That's right.
Very good. Well, Meredith, thank you so much for everything from San Pedro. It sounds like it's going really well there. So thank you very much for that.
This is a really exciting venue and an exciting field of competition that we have here. So we've had a great week and looking forward to another good one with the high performance boats coming in next week.